Hello everybody, this is Jerry Hocek from Natural Awakenings Magazine in Bergen Passaic County, and I'm here today with actually the gentleman who is my chiropractor of choice, Dr. Stephen Lavitan from A. Sterling Clinic in Teaneck, New Jersey on Cedar Lane. And he can be reached at asterlingclinic.com. That's the letter A, sterlingclinic.com. And today we're going to talk about what's going on with... why is everybody so sick in this freaking country? Is that a can of worms I just opened, or what?
No, it's the basic underlying factor. There's a lot of different ways you can look at it, but if you're taking the airplane view from 30,000 feet and looking down, what's the big factor? What has changed? Why do we get all the chronic diseases?
That's since what, the 50s?
No, it started after the 20s. They had virtually no cases of heart attacks in America until the 1920s.
Okay,
so we're talking about the last 100 years.
Right. Well, so, I mean, a lot of things have changed.
To the average person walking on the street eating the American diet, you were born like an American, you've grown up like an American, and when your chronic disease will begin, and eventually like a python, it will suck the life out of you. And you will die like an American, which is in pieces. Your longevity may not be the worst in the world, although among advanced countries, it's among the worst.
What the listeners need to understand is where you're coming from, because you know what? Anybody can say you're full of crap.
That's fine.
Okay, but fine. But what we have to do is put this into context. You've been in the witness stand, watching all this go down. You're watching people come in and out to your office sick.
Yes.
Right? Sick. Some leave sick because they just don't want to take responsibility, or they're less sick than when they come in, because I know you help, but
generally some, a little bit.
Right. But
there
the
are
ones
people that aren't touched
at all.
Yes, there are.
Okay, meaning
I fail.
Not you fail, they fail.
Their interaction had no positive effect.
Okay, but that's because what determines how much better they get is how much they're willing to participate, or to what extent they're willing to participate. Lifestyle. And it's always been that, and we've always avoided that as a culture here in the United States, as a culture, as individuals, and as families as well, because we get together. What do? We eat a bunch of crap all the time. Why? Because it tastes good.
Right, and if you have a problem, you go to the biggest doctor around.
And what does he do?
You know, I once had this woman come in and tell me she's been to the biggest doctor in New York, and my wife happened to have been up at the front. I looked at her and I said, "Madam, how big was your doctor?"
Some of them they got those big, what do they call those, big pot bellies?
Yeah, plenty of that. But the bottom line is there's no such thing as the biggest, best doctor. To my knowledge, there is no medical intervention that, when employed to a large number of people, results in prolongation of life, longevity.
Okay.
There's no single medical procedure that if you did to 10,000 people, and there were 10,000 people you didn't do it to, the 10,000 you did would live longer.
Because they're coming they come to someone when they're either in dire straits and they need the surgery,
right?
Or it's kind of like, well, if they can do other methods to alleviate whatever's going on in their bodies, but they just choose this whatever surgery. But so what's bottom line? If you want to avoid the hell, I would think the vicious cycle of let's say junk food, pills, like prescriptions, going to the doctor, being sick all the time.
You mean a short and miserable life?
Short and miserable life, which is a slow suicide, we called it, I think.
Yeah.
Kinda. I mean, that's really honest. I mean, we were really getting brutally honest here. If you're not speaking the truth, what are you doing? Really, what are you doing? What are you doing out here? What are we all pretending that all this works? That junk food and sugar's a killer. You've been teaching me about sugar, carbs.
But it's not sugar or carbs directly.
No. What is insulin?
It's insulin.
And why is insulin such a monster in your eyes? Because you and I have had these conversations.
Yeah. Historically, insulin is the anabolic hormone. Virtually all the other hormones are catabolic. It builds things up, in other words. Catabolic is break it down. And you want to really spend almost more time building things up rather breaking them down and keeping them in balance.
Right.
The anabolic, that strong, just blows the whole thing out. It goes to a cell. If a cell can only take in X amount of sugar, and you jam that cell with insulin, and the receptors get turned on. What have you done to the cell? If the cell can only take in a maximum amount of insulin, of sugar, and the sugar's maximized, and you add more sugar, you've just killed that cell. That's why skinny people that are metabolically challenged die sooner than heavy people that are metabolically challenged.
I remember reading in a really brilliant book called Sugar Blues by, what was it, Dufty?
Dufty.
What was his first name? William Dufty, Dufty is the author.
He was married to a very famous woman.
Which was, what the hell was her name?
I don't remember.
The actress.
It was an actress.
It was an actress.
It was Kennedy's paramour.
Okay, it might come to us.
Joseph Kennedy.
Right. Yeah, I'm a little vague on that. That's before my time a little bit, I think. But I remember reading in the book that in one of the chapters, and the book, if you like history, the book is just jam-packed with sugar history, and it just connects the dots.
It's one of my first books I read on the subject, yes.
Yeah, and it'll really change your association. It did for me anyway, for a while. It changed my association with sugar as this beautiful treat, and I can have it once in a while. It's like, and it showed me how much of a poison it is. It's such an insidious poison. And the thing is, we don't feel it. It's just it's long-term damage, and it's covert.
Yes,
it's covert because they're not. It's I don't know. It's not that kind of a action on the body, right? It's more. Whatever, long-term degenerative?
It's degenerative. I often talk about sugar as the equivalent of borrowing money from the bank. You can look very good short-term, but when it's time to pay it back, you're going to be in quite a bit of pain.
Oh, shit. Okay, so get off it now before you get into your 40s and 50s and 60s and 70s and whatever.
It all has to be paid back.
All right.
Now, a person who takes in what I call has a sugar exposure, it takes 168 hours before their calcium-phosphorus balance goes back to where it should be, which is 10-4.
Okay.
That's a full week.
That's a full week of what's happening that week? The body is just kind of in survival mode, or what? It's trying to
clean itself up.
It's bouncing back, so it's using resources.
Very little healing is going to go on in that week. And if you're constantly exposed to sugar, it virtually never gets a chance to heal.
So you're not even rejuvenating while you're sleeping because the body's constantly in repair mode.
Much less rejuvenation than might be taking place otherwise. There's other mechanisms with sleeping, but that's... Yeah, your mitochondria is taking it on the chin.
You do acupuncture?
Yes.
And what else do you do at your clinic?
Chiropractic, nutrition. My wife's a physical therapist and an acupuncturist, and she does nutrition. And out of absolutely everything we do, nutrition is by far the most important.
Why do you say that?
Because it makes the biggest difference. If you're the wealthiest patient I ever had, maybe you can afford to come in 3 times a week for 40 years or something like that. Not that I ever had a patient come in that much.
And you've been in practice 40 years, though, I believe.
Yeah, a little more than 40 years. Okay. But that's 3 times a week. Then I'm acting as a reference point. Versus nutritionally, I can get up to 21 times a week. That's so much more powerful. In the 1970s, I got a copy of a book called Nutrition and Physical Degeneration by Weston A. Price. He was a dentist. He was running the Cleveland Dental Clinic, which was an extremely successful dental clinic in Cleveland. And he was amazed how successful in fact, it was unpredictably successful. He couldn't understand why he had such a backlog. And he decided to research it. At the time, he became head of research for the precursor to the American Dental Association. And he got some funding, and he went all over the world with a camera and some laboratory equipment, and he did a lot of testing. I got a hold of this book, and it showed people's mouths before they were exposed to the Western diet and after. And their heads literally collapsed.
Whose heads?
They required orthodontia. The people that ate the Western diet.
Their heads collapsed?
Yeah, you could see them, instead of being round and beautiful, they were narrow and squinched.
So instead of being, instead of glowing, like kind of being brimming with
No, I'm talking about the actual shape.
Of their heads?
Yeah, their heads.
Well, wait, but so well, how does that equate to
dentistry
or anything?
Well, it equates to dentistry.
What does it mean, really, to the average person?
The average person, they're just less attractive, and they require orthodontia to maintain a decent bite. And they also had to have wisdom teeth taken out. The normal default setting for human health is to have your wisdom teeth come in. But if your wisdom teeth aren't coming in, they have to be extracted. And you need orthodontia because your bite isn't proper. Your occlusion is the dental term.
Okay, so this was a big clue.
Right, but it gets a little better.
Okay.
I read the book.
Uh-huh.
And for the next 2 weeks, I have horrific insomnia.
Why?
I'm figuring this guy's looking to sell me something. Couldn't figure out what it was. Either he's right and everybody's wrong, or he's wrong and everybody's right. Because he's talking about all these different diseases and problems and stuff. Horrible. To walk around 2 weeks without sleep is not good.
Tell me about it. Yeah. I know it.
And at the end of 2 weeks, I came to an interesting conclusion. First of all, he was dead. So there was nothing he could really sell me, but I figured maybe it was a family thing or a corporation or something. And then the second thing was there was no product involved. So he didn't have a vested interest. And the third thing was I didn't think he faked. It made no sense to go fake all these pictures. I mean, literally 2,000 pictures.
So what was he doing? What was he doing?
He was looking to discover the truth.
Of
why Westerners required so much dental work.
Uh-huh.
And in America, we practice mouthless medicine and medically-less dentistry.
What do you do after this epiphany?
After this epiphany, one of the guys who sponsored his book into perpetuity was a guy by the name of Royal Lee. Royal Lee was an electrical engineer who developed the Lee Governor, which is responsible for electric motors running at 0.1% of the rated speed, which may seem boring as hell right now, but when it came up with, before 1920, it was hot. And there's not an elevator that doesn't use it. Or he was the electrical engineer, certainly of the first part of the 20th century, moonshot, the whole 9 yards, absolute genius. So he's a dentist, although he never practiced. He just wanted to develop the high-speed dental drill. And he's fascinated by Weston Price's stuff. And not only just sponsoring the trip, or the trips, he did a lot of his lab work. And he came up with ways to give people the same types of food these, quote, primitive people were getting. There were 14 tribes of primitive people.
And where were they from?
All over the world, including some of the United States, some of the Indian tribes that are actually, some of them are almost unhealthy now because they've switched to the Western diet. The
ones who are still kind of secluded out in the wilderness regions or whatever, like Montana and whatever. At the time.
In Florida, there were some out west.
Yes.
There were some in villages. And
so they were eating more of a traditional diet.
Yes, they were unaffected by Western civilization.
They were foraging and hunting, I would assume.
He felt, at the time, this was his last chance to get a hold of these people.
Right.
Most of them didn't have electricity or anything.
Yeah.
And his criteria was no cavities per 100 teeth, which is basically per 3 people, and they had to have perfect occlusion. And he came up with them, and he kept very careful track of their diets and did lab work on it. Most extensive stuff ever. And today you have 2 foundations that are indirectly related, the Price-Pottinger.
Okay.
And the Weston A. Price, which is the one I'm more excited by. I graduated college in 3 years, Rutgers University in New Jersey. And then I graduated Columbia Institute of Chiropractic. And that time I was exposed to certain nutritional thinking. And I became obsessed by it. And that's how I spend every day. Pretty much from the time I graduated till the present, if you added all my hours of television and whatever combined, it would amount to next to nothing. Almost everything's been spent studying. Now, you might say, big deal, I have a medical doctor who does the same thing. Yes, you might. But his thinking is very likely affected by drug companies. They have 3 sources of information. You have journals, you have seminars, and you have detail persons. Well, the detail people I'm not even going to talk about because they're directly on the payroll. But Marcia Angell, former editor, publisher of the New England Journal of Medicine, whose husband was also editor of the New England Journal of Medicine, probably the most prestigious American journal, referred to medical journals as part of the promotion wing of drug companies. She dropped out of the New England Journal because she said we can't afford to give impartial advice if we're also selling ad space. And they relieved her of her position. She still teaches at Harvard. And she's reviewed quite a few books and written a few also, where she's taken this position. I agree with her. In order to get through medical school, you have to agree. Otherwise, you're not getting through. Robert Mendelsohn.
Agree to what?
Agree with how you're being taught. You're not educated. You're trained.
You're
trained to duplicate.
You're trained. You're trained from a curriculum that's been chosen by
basically the economic forces.
Economic forces.
Yeah, the economic forces.
Corporations.
Yeah, no question about it.
Who should be training the doctors, or who should be influencing what they're learning? If it was a perfect world, let's say.
Well, for starters, I would think in a perfect world, it would be general practitioners mainly.
They would be training each other? They would be
yes, out of experience, and the people paying for research, it would all have to be done out of a desire for pure clinical research, not to sell a product.
From an academic perspective.
To be interested in the truth. Now,
wow, there's a concept.
Yeah. Now, medical doctors are like firemen. Firemen have two tools. Do you know the two tools?
The hose?
And the
axe.
That's it. Now, what's the medical equivalent of the hose and the axe?
The scalpel?
Right. Scalpel is the equivalent of the axe, and the
hose is the meds?
Prescription pad, the syringe. I guess the syringe is a little like a hose anyway.
In the summer, that could be kind of nice. The hose is cool.
Yeah.
The water.
Could be, yeah. But unfortunately, anything that doesn't fit within that parameter is not considered medicine. Now, that might upset a lot of people, but it's not inaccurate. My wife had the best definition. We were talking about the philosophy of medicine one time. And I said it had none. And she said, of course it has one. I said, well, share it with me. And she said, medicine is the philosophical belief the body was born with too many organs and not enough drugs.
Where did she get that from?
She just came up with it.
Is that hers? That's her
hers.
Golden nugget?
That's her golden nugget.
I do respect your wife because I've chatted with her just a wee bit, and she's got an intriguing mind sometimes.
Because I thought it had no philosophy.
She's great, Charlotte.
But the bottom line is, it's to treat illness.
Yeah.
Medical doctors are by definition pathologists. Mm-hmm. I'm by definition a salutologist. I treat health.
What does that mean? You treat health?
There's 14,000 plus diseases according to WHO, World Health Organization.
Right.
And to my way of thinking, there's one case of health. My job is not to treat 14,000 cases of disease. My job is to encourage people to reach and maintain a level of health.
That sounds reasonable.
Yeah.
Why isn't everybody doing that? Well, I think we already answered.
It's too much work.
It's too much work, and it's the other method. Well, for now, before this thing kind of goes awry, it's more profitable to just treat symptoms.
Oh my gosh, Wall Street Journal called it a series of perverse incentives.
They did?
Yes.
When?
Oh, a long time ago. We are procedure driven. You are paid for procedures.
In an article?
Yes.
Like that everybody read?
Well, not everybody. Obviously, you didn't.
No, I didn't read it, but
Yeah, it was in the
that
journal.
didn't make. I wonder if it made any impact on anything.
No, of course not.
Why not? Yeah, like, don't go there.
Yeah.
Don't go there.
Yeah.
Don't go there.
If you're getting paid for procedures, what are you going to do?
You're gonna do procedures.
Right. Whether it's in the person's best interest or not, who cares?
You know, we had a restaurant. My ex-wife and I, right? My co-publisher, Pat, and there was a doctor there that used to come in, and he was like kind of aggressive a little bit, but not in a nice way. Like, you know, he was cool. Like, he was all right, but he just, you know, you could tell like he ordered people around.
Yeah.
All day long.
Yeah.
And I think his attitude came from. You know, where his attitude came from. What I asked him one day, I said, "What do you?" So I know you're a doctor. So what do you do? What field do you work in?
Yeah.
What field of medicine? He said, "We just saw stuff off." And I was like, "Really?" I said, "You do that like all day?" He said, "Yeah." And I said, "Well, how do you? You know, I don't think I didn't delve further, but I wanted to because
Right.
it's kind of morbid to me." But that's the reality of it. They're sawing, and why they're sawing stuff off. A lot of it's from diabetes. I know they're sawing like limbs off because. But how do we prevent diabetes? Why is there so much diabetes in the world? What's
High insulin levels. There was a medical doctor. I believe he's still alive. His name is Joseph Kraft. He's out of Chicago, St. Joe's Hospital. He's written a couple of books and a whole bunch of articles. And he came up with dynamic testing of insulin. Now, dynamic testing of insulin is secondary to Rosalind Yalow, who won the Nobel Prize for radioimmunological assay, which was the original testing of insulin. Except by dynamic insulin testing, you were able to find out the body's response to insulin. He found approximately 20% of the people had normal response. 20%. Now, I don't even go that sophisticated. Most of the people that I test, although I keep the kits in the back to allow dynamic testing, it costs about $200. For $47, LabCorp will do a static insulin test.
right?
Now, using normals promulgated by Joe Mercola from Mercola.com, who's the leading website for natural health, he said you should be between 1 and 3. You can go as high as 5. Now, the average American, I think the average American woman was 8.5 and maybe 8.8 or so for average American men, which medicine has no problem with because they think if it's less than 24, it's not a problem. Now,
really,
if you're above 24, that means you have a pancreatic tumor.
If
so
you're
they don't
above,
use it for that.
Okay, so because they're waiting till it gets bad enough.
Well, they're waiting for your pancreatic cancer.
Oh, that's what they're waiting for. Okay, so where would your what do you call it, baseline? Or?
Baseline is between 1 and 3.
1 and 3? And most
less
people
than 5, I probably wouldn't yell at you.
And 80% are walking around with what? Right
well,
now.
They're higher. I haven't taken actual stats for that, but according to, he did 14,000 of them, dynamic insulin testing, which is very similar to glucose tolerance
He did a study?
His hospital, not just
his hospital. They did a trial.
Well, not a trial.
What do they call it?
That was part of routine procedure.
Just collecting stats.
Yeah, he collected stats.
Okay.
And he wrote articles on it.
Mm-hmm.
And he had a very interesting conclusion. He said, if someone has been diagnosed with heart disease and hasn't been diagnosed with diabetes, they just missed the diabetic diagnosis.
Okay, so we're just...
So we're being global about this.
So the problem is we're just selling all this stuff with sugar and all these sugar products that contain sugar because they make money.
Yes.
And so...
Foods of commerce.
Foods of commerce. People buy it. Somebody makes money, so they're going to
food-like substances.
So they're going to keep manufacturing it, or whatever they do, harvesting or whatever. And
manufacturing is more accurate.
Well, yeah, for the refined sugars and all that, and so it's really up to us just to choose no sugar.
It takes a lot of energy.
What do you mean by that?
It sets you apart from most people living their life most ways.
I don't have to have that birthday cake, though.
No, you don't.
And I don't have to feel bad about not eating it.
And what I tell people when their patients here is to, when someone pressures them, tell them they're either pre-diabetic or diabetic, and that usually takes care of it. And
then they walk away.
That's right. And the truth is, they are. Almost no exceptions. Every single chronic disease is traceable. I can't think of an exception. If I could think of an exception,
back to insulin, or
back to insulin.
What? Almost all?
Almost all.
Back to insulin?
Back to insulin.
This is a very bold statement. What are you basing this on?
Well, I don't know if you know the name Albert Schweitzer.
Yes.
Nobel Prize winner, fabulous musician, medical doctor, humanist.
Sure.
He worked with one of my favorite guys, Fritz Kreisler, who was a fabulous musician and a medical doctor also in Africa. And in 25 years, he didn't see a case of cancer until his last week there, when Western foods were introduced. They've done studies where they released Aborigines back into the wild, and their cholesterol and everything, and their high blood pressure would go down.
What do you mean? They capture them and then they release them?
No, they don't capture them. They diagnose them.
Wait. So they become part. The Aboriginals become part of the study.
They move to the city. Yeah.
They move to the city. And then somebody's following these people.
Right. You're going to die in X number of time. You're very sick, and let's see what happens if you return to your native lifestyle.
So somebody's collecting stats. That's what you're telling me. Somebody's monitoring and collecting stats.
And all their parameters improve.
So that's telltale.
Yeah. To me.
So what are we saying? We're saying eat veggies, right? We're saying
eat tons of veggies.
Eat tons of veggies. What else? Like what's nuts and bolts for the people reading my magazine?
Okay, nuts are fine too.
Nuts are good. Nuts and
butter.
Not bolts.
Not bolts. Not bolts. Butter. Butter is the queen of all fats.
I love butter.
As far as I'm concerned, you should be eating lots of butter.
I eat.
Nina Techholz's book, That a Big Fat Surprise?
When I make my gluten-free cookies, I eat butter. But no, I'm not doing carbs anymore because you made me see light, and they have sugar in them, so I stopped.
Yeah, gluten-free is still high in sugar.
Okay.
And now the next thing you have gluten. People that are sensitive to gluten, that don't have celiac disease or sprue.
That's me. I am now sensitive because I overindulged in wheat to the point where I think my body was slowly shutting down. My kidneys were compromised. I know this because I had diagnostics done. And my colon was triple compromised. Not just from gluten, but from everything else I was doing. I wasn't eating enough veggies. And I'm type A, so I should probably eat more veggies than...
Okay, well, I had smaller problems. I just projectilely vomited.
From the gluten, you told me, right?
Yeah, they would form dams in my body that had to be broken open.
That's insane. And those dams were from the...
Well, gluten means glue.
It's glutinous.
Right. I used to put up wallpaper or Sanitus with gluten.
It's funny, we never really think about these words.
No.
Glutinous. It is glue.
Yeah.
You look up glutinous in the dictionary, it's going to say glue-like substance.
Right.
Or glue-like quality.
So those two things everybody should stay away from.
Sugar and wheat.
Yes. Now, some people should stay away from milk, probably the majority of people. And those that are taking milk are probably best off with heavy cream.
Really?
Yeah.
Best off? Oh, it's more whole?
It's fat.
You want fat.
Right. The problem with milk is it's lactose. Lactose is sugar. Now, if you get fermented milk, it's partially broken down, but it's still sugar. And, of course, milk is made with casein. Just look at Elmer's glue. What's Elsie doing there? From Jordan.
No kidding.
It's a form of glue.
So we're getting hit from all angles here.
Right.
We are. Soy's bad.
Used for glue.
What's all GMO too? A lot of this stuff.
Right.
Wheat is GMO.
Corn.
They don't even tell you the wheat's GMO.
Four.
They just tell you the soy's GMO and the corn and whatever.
Corn.
Red
That's
beets.
used for glue also.
Red beets, but we know the wheat is because they're soaking it in that herbicide. What is it called?
Glyphosate or Roundup.
Right. Glyphosate.
It's sprayed.
It's sprayed. So yeah, there's a lot of credence to not eating GMOs. I don't think we're going to get into that. Maybe that's for another segment.
Yes.
And but so how about if you're out there, you're the average guy or the average man or woman walking down the street today in Bergen County, New Jersey, in North Jersey, and on the East Coast, wherever. What are you going to do? You're going to avoid sugar. I mean, if you want to, what do you want? You want quality of life into your later years, right? You want to maintain your good looks, number one, right? Because everybody's.
You want to keep your mind.
And you want to keep you want to stave off dementia.
Right.
You want to stave off looking like a big beast with the big pot bellies and the big round butts, right, and all that. But what do you really want? You want to be able to be active. You want to make love. You want to go out. You want to, right? I mean, you want quality of life. You want quality of life.
Here's my delineation on that.
And how?
Either you're alive or you're dead.
Or you're dying.
Well, dying is Well, you should be alive or dead. I want to get rid of that dying portion.
Okay, so
that's
a lot
my
of us
goal.
are just dying more quickly than the normal
right.
pace.
I want it to be a 90-degree drop. You're alive, went to sleep, didn't wake up, you're dead. I want you to die young at an old age.
I got that. Die young at an old age. And how do we achieve that? By eating more of the stuff we're supposed. A lot more of the stuff we're supposed.
Well, for starters, you could test your insulin. Find out where you are
Glucose
on the
meter?
continuum.
The glucose?
No.
What? How?
You go to like a LabCorp, not that I'm pushing them, it's $47, and I'm sure the other labs do the same thing.
Right. And they need a prescription for that or no?
I don't know. LabCorp doesn't require one, but anyone...
What's the test called again?
Fasting insulin.
The test. The actual...
That's what's called. Fasting insulin.
Okay. So that's if they call LabCorp or whoever or send an
right,
email,
and say,
that's
if
what
I'm
they...
willing to pay for it up front, how much does it cost? You're much better off doing that because if they bill you, it's going to be twice as much.
Credit card. On the phone.
Well, when you go down there and write a check, you pay for it then. Then you're done.
You're done.
And you know the price.
And what are those stats, what are those numbers going to give you?
Those numbers will give you how hard your body is idling. Jerry, if I went out to your car and kept it in the parking space and left it in park and raced the engine, is that a good thing for your engine or a bad thing?
Definitely not a good thing.
Not a good
thing.
thing.
And I know a little bit about cars.
Okay.
I had some muscle cars back in the day.
Okay.
Just to get a little greasy.
That's what hyperinsulinemia does. It speeds everything up.
Hypersalemia.
Hyperinsulinemia.
Insulemia, like
too
from
much
the word,
insulin.
Okay, too much insulin. Wow, really?
Yes.
And this is from sugar. This is from carbs.
Right.
This
you
is
can
from
even
what?
get it from too much protein, but that's
potatoes.
pretty
Or what are you talking about?
Yeah.
White rice,
Yes.
white
Yes.
rice, potatoes.
Yes.
Even brown rice. Because
Yes.
it's
Yes.
we're talking about grains. Avoid grains. Avoid grains.
Yeah.
So meat and vegetables.
Right,
Fat.
and mainly fat you want to take in.
And fat you want to because for the brain needs fat.
The brain is fat.
That's why my brain's good because I eat a lot of fat because I'm European.
Yeah.
Pork chops with like the fat on them.
Right.
Organic, of course.
Yeah.
And yeah, because when I go to the Thai restaurant, I get the stir fry without the rice.
Right, whatever doesn't produce insulin. Now, again, this is way advanced.
Is it?
But too much protein can cause problems. But in the beginning, if you're...
But we can tackle that later.
Yes,
Let's get off.
but right
let's get
now,
off all the carbs.
if you get off
and we
meat-
get off the carbs, we're going to lose weight, right?
Of course.
Okay, and sometimes significantly as well.
Yes.
Okay, because I have my friend Joy, who's going to be on this show later. She's doing no carb and cheating a little bit.
Yeah.
But she's lost weight, and she feels better, and she's digesting more. Yeah, she has less bloat. What else?
Right.
Less indigestion, less gas.
The skin looks better. I have people coming in 20 years younger.
Even her eyes are
beaming.
have more, what do you call it, sparkles in them.
I had a woman in today. She's been married 72 years. She has 2 great-great-grandchildren.
Mm.
She looked so much better.
I believe it. I told you my mother did that cleanse. That's it's a fast that's not a fast. Proper food combining. Right. If you want to look up food combining in Google, just look up food combining, how to properly combine foods. That's going to help you a lot because your food's not will be more properly digested when you combine foods properly. And she did this she did no meat, it was no sugar, no wheat, no nothing for 2 years. I swear, I was visiting and I was like, Ma, you look 20 years younger. I mean, no exaggeration. Right. 20, maybe 18 years, 16 years, but something close somewhere enough. In that 15 years even, whatever. But I'm not. It was a very dramatic it was a dramatic change from what she looked like, because now her body wasn't retaining as much water, because it wasn't in emergency mode all the time, because it wasn't fighting off that Western American diet.
And I have people, women especially, they're more concerned than men, with wrinkles. When they increase the fat and decrease the carbs, they tend to disappear.
They do?
Yeah. Look at Eskimos. Not very wrinkly.
Not even the older ones.
Yeah, because they're taking in fats. When you take in these fats, as they're digested within the cell produces water inside the cell, intracellularly.
Interesting.
Intercellularly, you drink lots of water, you pee out lots of water. Not much of a gain.
I hear you. Yeah.
Yeah, so the first and most important thing, and I don't care if none of your listeners ever go to me or whatever.
I know, because he's already booked up all the time.
Yeah.
And I know, have you advertised at all in 40 years, or maybe in the beginning, very beginning?
No.
You just you put the sign on the window, and
that was pretty much it.
And then everybody's kind of figured out that this guy's maybe onto something. He's kind of telling the truth a little bit more than everybody else. And
also, I don't deal that huge volume. It's enough for me. No,
I know, but it's brisk in here.
Yeah.
It's all week long. It's brisk.
Yeah.
It's brisk, and you're my chiropractor, so and my acupuncturist. You have great bedside manner, and you always share information. So, but here's the bottom line: is he'll give you the info as long as you're listening, as long as your pulse is beating a little bit or whatever, your pulse is going, and what you choose to do with it, it's up to you, really. It's
actually one of my most exciting patients I've ever had.
Yeah.
I can't get into the actual particulars.
Right.
But in effect, we saved him a major piece of surgery. And I saw him twice after that. And I've spoken to him on the phone, and he's doing fabulously well. And I'm so proud of what he's done with his life. Even though he doesn't come in for regular care, couldn't care less.
What did he change?
He changed from dying from Crohn's disease.
That's serious stuff.
He already lost half his bowel before I even worked with me.
Through surgery?
Through surgery. He did a radical shift in diet. And last I spoke to him, he was playing tennis and golf and 20 years younger.
And what's he eating? Or not eating?
He's eating pretty much what we talked about.
Meat? And this is what I eat. Meat and vegetables. Fish and vegetables.
Yes.
Fish and vegetables. And I eat nuts.
Yeah.
And
whatever he's eating.
A little bit of fruit here and there, not much. In the morning, on an empty stomach.
You can eat some fruit eventually. You have to go in and out of fruit. That's another story.
I don't eat much fruit.
Okay.
Now, so I do liquids in the morning.
Okay.
I do my hot water and lemon, because that cleanses my mucus, because I'm A-type blood or whatever.
Yeah.
But anyway, so this has been Dr. Stephen Lavitan, one of my favorite people in the world, really, because we have some very spirited, engaging conversations, and what's better than that in life, aside from maybe drinking some beer together. But he won't do that, because he's such an academic. I can't get him out of his man cave. Thanks for coming, and it's good to have you on the show. You're actually you're the first guest ever. Isn't that awesome?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is.
They're gonna be listening to this for years to come. I'm telling you.
Okay.
So thanks.
Sounds good.
Thanks again.